very good morning and welcome to today's edition of Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. You're joined here with me, Mevan, and I hope you've had a good week. We've come to the middle of the week. It's a Wednesday morning, the 7th of November 2012. And a lot happening today. As we all know, the US elections are happening. Also, the budget discussion is coming up as well. And, let's take a look at some of the stories that's been happening over the week, taking the headlines. The main story that's been developing for everyone back at home is the impeachment motion against the Chief Justice. Now, the 14 charges against the CJ have been tabled, and just a quick flashback, we have on the screen a very interesting cartoon, and the headline says "Naked more than transparent," and it says that this describes how there is a lot of controversy regarding this issue. And moving on back to the headlines, just to mention briefly some of the charges that have been leveled against her. Quick flashback: Dr. Shirani Bandaranaike, the current Chief Justice, is the 43rd Chief Justice of Sri Lanka, and she is of course the first female Chief Justice as well. Now, on the 1st of November, the impeachment motion against the Chief Justice was handed over to the Speaker by the MPs Arundika Fernando and L. Alagiyawanna. And on the 6th of November, the impeachment motion against the CJ was placed on the order paper of Parliament today, and it makes 14 charges against her. Now, we're not going to go into detail about the charges, but they're all listed out here. And among the main charges are the Chief Justice's undeclared bank account with a deposit of a few million foreign currency, actually, and there are a list of other charges as well. So it will be interesting to see how this will be debated in Parliament. Once again, moving on to yet another key issue that will be debated in Parliament, the Divi Naguma bill needs referendum, says the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has determined that the Divi Naguma bill has to be approved by a two-third majority Parliament because of the absence of one provincial council to endorse it, and as some of its clauses are inconsistent with the Constitution. There we go. The Supreme Court has declared that the Divi Naguma bill needs a referendum, and it also needs a special majority. Now, bit on a lighter side of things, we have an interesting story taking the headlines again. A horrible attempt to steal golden crown from statue. Now, devotees had reportedly caught a man who was alleged to, tried to attempt to remove the gold crown adorning the statue of God of Kataragama at the Kaluwela Sri Kadir Veluyada Kovil in Galle. Now, apparently, he had tried to pretend that he was in a trance and tried to, snatch off the gold crown of the statue. So, but of course, it has been what in today's terms we classify it as an epic fail, because the people have actually caught him right before he even left the Kovil. So there we go. Let's look at some of the stories in the front page. Moving on to some business news. We have, an interesting story. Of course, the discussion of the budget is also coming up. But then private pension provident funds can invest up to 20% in capital market. And it goes on to say that restrictions placed previously on the investment in capital market by private pension, provident and other funds have been lifted, subject to a maximum of 20% exposure. And the Securities and Exchange Commission said yesterday that with the objective of developing the Sri Lankan capital market through widening the domestic investor base and enhancing the returns, this decision has been made. And also taking a look, Sri Lanka and tourism has really taken a leap ahead. We know that Lonely Planet, a very popular magazine, had named Sri Lanka as the top tourist destination for the year 2013. And Sri Lanka also becomes the ideal wedding destination. Now, Sri Lanka as a destination has been promoted under two new themes at the World Travel Market, and one of the largest global travel and tourism events in London. And Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau has tried to promote Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka has become the ideal wedding destination at the WTM. Moving on there's an interesting article about the budget discussion as well, and also we will be bringing you the telecast of the budget discussion on MTV Sports later on. A bipartisan budget debate and some of the key questions that we need to consider. Now there's an interesting picture here, a cartoon that depicts that law and order are having a lot of faulty effects and a lot of faults there. So moving on, some of the main questions that will be asked in the budget discussion will be: what are the national resource allocation priorities, trends in the shift of priorities, and specific areas where cuts have been imposed? Are the major infrastructure projects funded by previous budget allocations? And also, what is the fiscal gap of the difference between projected spending and projected revenue in the future years as well? And wrapping up with another important question is whether there is a serious initiative towards assuring that all key budget expenditure items are managed with economy, efficiency and effectiveness. So these will be some of the key questions that will be discussed, that analysts are looking at in terms of the budget discussion as well. Moving on to some international news, of course the US elections are happening at the moment, but an interesting article, some of us, all the main question is, when will we know when the winner is announced? But CNN goes on to say that we really don't know, and it looks like it's a very, very tight election this time around, where the final prediction on it right before the day of the election, that's on the 5th of November rather, said that both contenders enjoyed a 49% of the polls, and it goes on to say that if by chance this is a really close election, it might even move on to the next week before the winner or the next president for the next 4 years is announced. And an interesting thing that most of us miss out when taking a look at the US elections is that there is the popular vote and there is also the vote of the electoral, and it's a lot of predictions saying that the incumbent president might definitely go on to have an added advantage in the electoral vote, but Mitt Romney might actually have more of a chance in the popular vote. And last time that happened, where Vice President Al Gore managed to win the popular vote, but then again President George Bush managed to win the electoral vote and become elected as president. So I don't know, we'll have to see whether that happens once again. Moving on to some sports news. Now Sri Lanka cricket had a good day yesterday, where they managed to win their third ODI against New Zealand with a 7-wicket victory. Now Tilakaratne Dilshan and Angelo Matthews starred in Sri Lanka's comprehensive 7-wicket win over New Zealand in the third ODI played at the Pallekele Stadium yesterday. Now Dilshan managed to score 102 not out, and Angelo Matthews also managed to score 54 not out. So that's good news for all you cricket fans as well. Now later on the show, we've got an interesting guest to talk about an issue that has been taking the news on and off, and something that we need to focus more. But right about now, we're going to head on to a short commercial break. We'll be back on Good Morning Sri Lanka.